He's like a jazz musician when he's sort of scatting around. It's a real joy. And we started to see that his version of Daemon was actually the most profound version that we needed for the story that we were building at that point. Hi, Vanity Fair. I'm Kate Rhodes James. I'm the casting director of House of the Dragon. And today I'm going to let you into some of my secrets of how we put it all together. Game of Thrones was the most sensationally successful TV show, I think, of all time. I think a lot of that success was primarily down to the genius of the casting. And so that was a very tall order to follow. I wanted to challenge everyone's preconceptions about these roles. And I think that's also part of what a casting director should do, is to say, yes, that could work, but what if we went that way? Rhaenyra, she needed to be somebody that was unusual, fiercely intelligent. I didn't want her to be this sort of doe-eyed girl that we see on television a lot. You've got to think about your audience that's going to spend the next 5 years with this character, and you need an actor that's going to evolve. I found Emma through theatre, and I was fascinated by them. I would call them in for many auditions, and they always did something unique, something so unique. I'd spend, a whole day hearing the scene being done, well, and then Emma would come in, and it was like they would find elements of a scene that no one had even seen, let alone noticed, and it never felt like acting. So I was like on a mission to find the right thing for them. It was very exciting when I introduced them to Ryan and Miguel. They had read, along with many, many other actresses, and I remember sending the link to them in California and thinking, okay, this is going to go two ways. These are either my people or possibly not my people. And they immediately came back and said, there's only one person, and that was Emma, which was a huge relief, because then I knew I was with the people creatively that I could go on this very, very long journey with. Millie Alcock is an actress who I had already known her work. I'd seen her in an Australian show called Upright and thought she was just spectacular. What you do is you ask for younger pictures of the actresses because it guides you. And then I suddenly, halfway through the process, thought, hang on a minute, Millie, put a picture next to Emma. It was the shape of the face, obviously the colour of the eyes, but also Millie's a little renegade, as is Emma. Their energies are very, very similar. It just is that free spirit. It's that wild intellect and fierceness. Even when Millie is just the cupbearer with her father, she is a presence and already a force. And I already knew I was going to get that from Emma. So it's making sure you marry those up. She did an audition. It was really chaotic, which added to the fun of it. She was living at home with her mum. She was in an attic in Sydney. It was very early for me, very late for her. We worked a lot together on a Zoom. And it was her energy. And I knew that was what would appeal to everybody. It didn't matter that the flat was maybe a bit chaotic. It sort of added to her charm and to who Millie was then, not now, but then as a hugely enthusiastic, characterful young woman. Olivia Cooke, very experienced actress. She'd been acting since she was very, very young. And somebody I'd never got to work with and I'd always wanted to. Right from the get-go again, self-tape, kind of knocked it out of the park. She auditioned also for Rhaenyra. Both the reads were spectacular, but it was really clear that she was suited to Alicent. And I can't explain to you why, because it's just an instinctive thing. And then the joy of having Emma and Olivia spark off each other. You hope that happens, you don't know. I was watching actually the scene between the two girls, Rhaenyra and Alicent, but Rhaenyra realises that Alicent made a mistake. This is just extraordinary performance. That's a real honour to be around actors as talented and as clever as that. For Olivia, finding the younger version of her was slightly easier than Emma, simply because Olivia's got, that beautiful dark brown hair and those big brown eyes. And we did a big open call, again, virtually. But at this stage, it was ultimately who was going to feel like the young version of Olivia, but also who, these are two lambs to the slaughter. So there's a vulnerability. Emily just sort of wafted in with this incredible sort of glow and charm and innocence about her that was completely and utterly engaging for what we needed from Alicent at that time. Alicent was always the good girl. She was always sort of saying, oh, Rhaenyra, stop doing that and put that away and stop laughing too much, stop talking too loudly. And they just worked it out beautifully. So we were really blessed in those situations. You just got to make sure you cover everything and just pray that they're out there. Matt Smith, an extraordinary actor, really, really, really brought it to the table. Daemon has no redeeming features, and that's a good thing. I think that's fun to play. I mean, in that first series, he's seducing his niece. He's at the whorehouse every 5 seconds. He's completely out of control and vicious with it. I knew in my heart of hearts that Matt can play that. Most of what he had done up to that point, there had been sympathetic side to him. And we needed to not see that. We needed not to have any sense of, really, really just go for it. So we asked him in for an audition, and he was was phenomenal. He came in, I had to read with him, which was somewhat mortifying for him, but we did it, and he just went with it. He's like a jazz musician when he's sort of scatting around, and it's a real joy. And we started to see that his version of Daemon was actually the most profound version that we needed for the story that we were building at that point. It was extraordinary. It was just extraordinary, and it was just a slam dunk at that point. He was our Daemon. And it's funny because I can't think of anybody else that I even considered for that role. They're just gone. I can't remember. I think the easy way to have gone with Daemon, which wouldn't have been nearly as interesting, would have been to get some big, muscly thug of an actor. That would have been boring. You want the complexities. You want someone who can physically be that person, which Matt does, but equally be able to navigate those different relationships between the ones that he has with his brother, with his niece, with his aunt, all of that. And that is where Matt is so spectacularly skillful. I think this is an incredibly brilliant platform for him. Ewan Mitchell. I knew Ewan a bit from his previous work, but I didn't know him forensically. And he obviously stood out for quite a striking looking young man and an intensity. And when he gave us that, my word, it was quite something else. And that essence, having an actor that's going to be that brave and fearless, that's what House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones is all about, is having fearless actors. So he really, really turned it up a huge notch. There was just an otherworldliness. They don't disappear. They all stand out. And he had a great build-up with the fantastic Leo Ashton, who played the younger version of him, with the loss of the eye, that fight scene with those kids, I still think is just phenomenal. I mean, it's the first time I've seen children fighting like adults, which is what they were trained to do. They said, we're not going to teach you to fight like children, we're going to teach you to fight like adults, which made that scene all the more shocking in season 1. So Leo, again, had sowed the seed so magnificently for Ewan to then come in and with his eye patch and all of those spectacular visuals that he had. He didn't have much to do. He was just being established in season 1, but season 2, my God, it brings fun to it as well, which makes it even more enjoyable. Matthew Needham actually is a great example of another extraordinarily fascinating actor who I've worked with quite a lot. And if you bring in people like Matthew, some directors wouldn't know what to do with him. But the really, really, really brilliant directors have really, really hit the floor running with him. I mean, I had him in Napoleon. He played Joaquin Phoenix's brother in Napoleon, and Joaquin absolutely adored him because Matthew sits back. He just sits back and he watches. He's a watcher and he's an absorber. And those, of course, are the most fascinating people. He doesn't need to try too much. He's already worked out why this person is the way he is. He's not just playing someone with a club foot who's got some axe to grind. So that's when I say to actors, and it's hard because a lot of the time they don't get scripts or they get dummy sides. I always say, make a decision about the character, bring it into the room. And every time I've seen an actor do that, I see the director move forward and go, okay, great, that was wonderful, but let's go again and we'll try something else. If you walk into the room and expecting us to sort of give it to you, it doesn't succeed so well. Tom's just a spectacular actor who I had seen in the Jez Butterworth play, at the Royal Court. He came on to one of my all-time favourite songs, which was Teenage Kicks by the Undertones. And he danced with such ferocity. His foot, he was wearing Doc Martens, and he was stamping and stamping and stamping on the stage, and the stage was wobbling. And I just thought, look at that commitment, that passion, that ferocity. I was completely besotted with him as an actor. I had been determined to find something. So when we were casting this, I do remember saying to Ryan and Miguel, I know exactly who's going to play this. And I said, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want you to be pressurized, but I have exactly the perfect actor to play this role. And it was Tom. I've known Steve for years. I've cast him in many things, Line of Duty, and I've seen a lot of his theatre. It was a joy actually to be able to put Steve's front and centre, because everything that he was doing so brilliantly, but he was never really giving those lead roles on camera. And to give him a lead role, which, you know, they all are leading characters, it was real joy, and he's loving every minute of it. And he and Eve Best are just spectacular together, and they look after each other. And again, that's part of the process. You're making sure that you're getting personalities that are going to, because those performances will only grow when you have somebody that's going to let you become the fertile land. It's lines like, you know, Rhaenys, the queen that never was. I mean, that says everything. That's a lifetime of frustration, of loss, of never getting what she wanted, of always being second best. And I think that's profoundly inspiring. So that's what led me on that road for, say, Rhaenys. I mean, it's a gift. It's a complete gift to work on a show like this. I'm immensely proud of it. I'm immensely proud of every single person in it. They've all taken on this huge responsibility. And it wasn't easy. You know, we shot the first series in lockdown. You know, they went from their locked-in homes and into a locked-in studio in Watford. But there's a real sense of camaraderie amongst everybody. And I think that's essential.